Well, of course they did. The Carolina Panthers, as they've done for most of the year, followed a dud on Monday Night Football with the stunner of the week in the league 6 days later, beating the L.A. Rams. Many considered the best team in football, 31-28 in the cold and the rain at Bank of America Stadium. Here we are on Panthers on the Plus, as we do every Monday night, to recap the Panthers game. This week we get to talk about a win and look ahead to what's next, which they're going to enjoy this for 2 weeks because they've got the late bye week. And here to do that with us is NFL tight end and football analyst Dominique Daphne. You may remember Dominique from training camp this summer with the Panthers, so he brings the unique perspective of donning a Panthers helmet this year and donning an NFL helmet for a handful of years, most notably with the Packers. My in-laws are from Milwaukee, so they appreciate you, Dom. Thanks for joining me, man. I really appreciate you being here.
No, I appreciate it. Of course, I was free. I'm always up to talk some ball, so I appreciate the opportunity.
And just give us an update on you. Obviously, you know, you were here in camp till the very end. And I know you're probably watching these games. You don't want anybody to go down, but you're seeing what's going on in these tight end rooms, right? Like, what's it like for you right now? Yeah. I know you're still putting in the work.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously with it being year 6, I kind of know how this whole circus goes, of how it could be at any moment. I could be called right now if it were so. I'm always just being ready, but also taking advantage of the free time that I have to do stuff like we were just talking about with calling games and doing the other media side of stuff and kind of getting that plan B ready for whenever I want to hang the cleats up and call it a day. But yeah, for right now, just working out in the morning and then just taking care of media stuff in the afternoon.
Awesome. All right, Dominique, everybody was surprised that the Panthers won yesterday. But when I went in the locker room, those guys were not surprised. Were you surprised? I mean, you haven't been around this team in a few months, but you've seen from afar what they've been up to, and it's been up and down these last couple of weeks.
I wouldn't say surprised. I mean, I think we all know the Rams team is all around is a really good football team. You know, obviously I've gotten the chance to play against Stafford and with Devontae Adams, so I know what they have on that offensive side as far as weapons, and but also being in the locker room with the Carolina Panthers, I know their mentality, and they believe that they have enough players in that locker room to compete and beat anybody. And so the fact that they weren't surprised, I'm not surprised at all. They compete, they play physical. That's one thing Canales is always talking about. I want the coach to come up to me and say, hey, that was a physical game. You guys play extremely physical. You guys play hard. And that's what they showed on Sunday. And while, yes, the rest of the world is like the Rams lost to the Panthers, but in that locker room, they expected that. They expect to go out there and compete with anybody and be able to beat anybody and put themselves in position to play for an NFC South championship and much more after that.
Yeah, all right. Let's listen to what Dave Canales said after the game, because I thought this quote was really telling in terms of that mentality, and I think you'll be able to hear this too, Dominique.
Yeah, really the challenge was for the guys, and Saturday night just saying, we have seen the Rams' best football, and they've been playing amazing. And I said, no one's seen our best yet. And while they still made yards and they still did things, our best football is still out there in front of us, and that's our goal, is to find it.
Dominique, I thought that was telling about Dave Canales' message to the team going into this game. Last year we saw his team ramp it up at the end of the year. That appears to be happening now if they can get the consistency piece going. What does it take for a team to play their best football when it gets cold, when we get to November, December, at all levels, but especially the NFL?
Yeah, it's a lot of it has to do with attention to detail, and coaches harp on it. It's cliches that you constantly hear, football is a game of inches and all that stuff. I mean, they talk about it every single day. So the details is what gets you beat, because obviously, it's November, December, it gets cold. And a lot of times later in the season, guys aren't practicing with pads on. You'll go to practice and guys just have jerseys and helmets, and there's less contact. So what do you harp on? You harp on the details. You harp on alignment, assignment, and are you playing at 100%? And so that's really what it gets down to when it gets down to November, December, January football, is what team is playing the cleanest amount of football and is playing at their peak at the perfect time. So that's what I think a lot of that is what you're seeing resonate with some of these teams where they're starting to go on stretches towards the end of the year. Is a lot of it has to do with the details that they put in, and they harp on those things on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday, on Saturday, on the plane to wherever they're playing. It's always about the details, and it matters the most. And you'll see it when guys aren't locked in, when they're not playing detail-oriented. You see guys lose. You see guys have penalties. You see guys with MAs and all the other stuff that you see where guys look like they're lost. Is because they're not playing with the details in mind, and they're not harping on the little things. So the little things don't seem like much, but it's what gets a lot of teams beat.
All right, it must have been a details week, Dominique, because we were over there. They had the short week, and they were on the game field basically doing walkthroughs. So I think that lends itself to what you're saying right there. We've seen what they look like when they admittedly maybe aren't so focused on the details. So let me ask you this. Everybody says nationally, everybody's back on board with the Panthers, and they say, is a team learning how to win right now? We hear that a lot in football. What does that mean to you as a player? What does it feel like to learn how to win, and what does it take to get that lesson to where it's like, okay, we got this now. We know the formula.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with what you just talked about, is those practices where, usually when it's a short week, I don't know if a lot of people know this, is sometimes you'll have 2 practices in one day. And whether it be Tuesday or Wednesday, if you have the Monday night game and then you play on Sunday, a lot of times you'll have 2 practices on that Wednesday. Both of them will be like walk through or maybe a jog through, trying to get your body back, but also trying to, put in a full game plan. So that's what kind of winning looks like, is being able to, kind of focus on the details and on the assignment without having to beat each other up. Gone are the days where it's December and we're still on full pads scrimmaging, against people don't really do that anymore. They like to take care of your bodies, take care of your mind, but also, be able to practice and be able to play like a veteran towards the end of the year, and realize, we're not going to have many opportunities to put the pads on besides the game. So you have to be able to be focused in those walkthrough practices that you see, and be focused in the extra meetings that we'll have in order to go out there on Sunday and still be able to put forward the effort that you saw on Sunday for the Panthers.
All right, as we wrap up segment 1, can't wait to get your perspective on Bryce Young as a guy who practiced with him all summer long and through the spring. Bryce Young yesterday on 3rd and 4th downs was 8 for 10 for 162 yards and 3 touchdowns. Why do you think Dave Canales was willing to put the ball in Bryce Young's hand in those situations, and then, not a touchdown, but 3rd and 5 to really seal the victory? They didn't just run it up the gut. They got the first down from Bryce to Coker.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with, obviously the trust factor between those two. The fact that, he's talented, he's smart, he isn't afraid of those big moments. Obviously, not to mention, he's a Heisman winner, he's a first-round draft pick, he's all those things. And they gave him the keys and said, hey, win us this game. And the coaches trust him, the players trust him. Of course, he trusts himself to make those plays. And you'll see it when you go to practice. He harps on a lot of the things, and he puts even more pressure on himself than anybody else can do, because he expects greatness from himself. He expects himself to make those plays, and he expects himself, when it's 3rd and 8, when it's 4th and 5, whatever it may be, he expects himself to be able to come through for his team and for his teammates. So I think a lot of that has to do with the trust factor, but also the reps that he's gotten in from April till now to show Canales that, yeah, when it gets sticky against the Rams and when it's 4th quarter and you need me to get the ball to Coker on to end this game, I can do that. So I think a lot of that has to do with the trust factor, but also the reps that he's put in countless amount of hours over the summers leading up till now.
Real quick, Dominique, staying with Bryce Young, when you have a quarterback that maybe he's had inconsistencies and mixed results, but when he's money on those downs as a teammate, how much does that help your trust in him?
Oh, a ton. You kind of rise and fall, especially nowadays with where football's out, you kind of rise and fall with your quarterback. But if your quarterback's feeling good and he's making plays, that just revitalizes the whole team. You know, it's the engine that keeps the train running. And if he's going, then we're going. If he's being aggressive, if he's playing with energy, then we're going to follow suit. We're going to do the same thing. So when you see your quarterback making plays and playing at his full caliber, you know, that's just going to give energy to the rest of the offense and to even the defense. So it's like when you see your guy playing, it's only going to make you feel and play better.
All right, we're here with NFL tight end and football analyst Dominique Daphne. We're going to continue this great conversation. We got to talk about the O-line, the run game, and that defense coming right up here on Panthers on the Plus. All right, welcome back to Panthers on the Plus. We are talking about the Panthers' big win over the LA Rams with NFL tight end and football analyst Dominique Daphne, who spent the spring and summer through training camp with a Panthers uniform on. Dominique, this offensive line put out its 10th different combination in its 13th game. How crazy is that to you as an NFL player? And how not only that they did it, but that they ran for a $160, and Bryce was sacked twice, but it seemed like he had time and he stayed clean.
I mean, it's kind of unheard of, to be honest, and I think they should really give themselves a pat on the back because that's not easy to do. When you talk about the offensive line, a lot of it has to do with communication and having that feel for the guy next to you and being able to trust the guy next to you that he's going to do the job that you need him to do. You need to be able to trust that he's going to be there, that your center is going to make the right call. So the fact that they put out their 10th, I guess, combination, and they're still able to play at a high level, I mean, that's hats off to them and hats off to Goody, to Joe, and all the work they put in on the week and on the weekend and all the film they go through. So it's kind of crazy. You see it happen a lot. Offensive linemen go down, you know, it's next man up. But I think the 10th combination, that's kind of crazy.
This was clearly the Panthers' most balanced day offensively all year. They went from handing it to a running back 9 times on Monday. 6 days later, they handed it to a running back 35 times, 18 and 17, the split between Rico and Chuba. I mean, did they find the recipe for the rest of the season? I mean, is that pretty much it right there?
Yeah, I think that San Fran game really kind of pissed them off a little bit, the whole team, and because they weren't able to do what they normally do, which is ground and pound, get the ball to Chuba, get the ball to Rico, and kind of let them open up the offense for them. You know, the fact that they weren't able to do that, I think they were going to go extremely left. And we're going to do the opposite of what we were able to do versus the 49ers and see if we could gain some momentum offensively, and they were able to. And, you know, that's the Panthers' bread and butter is ground and pound, but then that's going to open up play action. It's going to open up the deep ball to Leggett, to T-Mac, to all those guys, and let them work on the deep end. So I think the fact that they weren't able to run the ball well against the 49ers really made them want to hone in on running the ball and letting that kind of be the engine that kept them going for this game and allowed them to open up to other things as the game went on.
Awesome. Speaking of being ticked, I got to tell you about talking to Derek Brown in the locker room yesterday. I don't know who he saw say what, but this is what he told us about how they were feeling coming into this game.
Nobody gave us a chance to beat these guys out the Monday night. You know, we lost JC and Trey. I mean, we lost a lot of pieces of the defense. I mean, it just shows the resilience of this team and being able to come in this week and say, you know, screw everything. We got an opportunity to go out here and play a really good team. We're led by a really good quarterback. A lot of explosive pieces on their offense, and for us to go out there and win today was a big thing for us.
You know, we talked a lot about Matt Stafford and Devontae Adams and Byron Young for the Rams. I think we may have forgotten the best player on the football field overall, pound for pound, was probably Derek Brown, and he made us remember. How tough is he? I don't know how much you would have matched up with him positionally, like in camp, but how tough is this guy?
Extremely, and he's just his presence is just it's known 24/7,
yeah.
And you could feel when he's not there on the defense. You can feel when he's there. They play at a completely different caliber. They're flying around. Everyone's just making plays, and they're just screaming. They're talking crap. It happened all the time during camp, and you know it's just that he's a leader on and off the field. And I got a chance to talk to him during camp, just in the training room, just talk about ball, talk about life. Talk about how technically we were the old guys on the team now, and I was just like, yeah, don't tell me that. I'm only 28 years old. Don't tell me I'm old. But he's what makes that defense go. And when you could see it, you could feel it, the type of push that the O-line doesn't get because he's on the opposite side. You know, the freeness that the linebackers and the DBs can play with because they know they got DB in the game. Like, he's just a game wrecker. And they're so glad to have him back, have him be healthy, and be able to make plays for him. 2 big plays for him on the defensive side of the ball on Sunday. And, you know, his presence is consistently felt on that defense.
I don't know if you can blame people outside the locker room for thinking, okay, it's Matt Stafford, there's no J.C. Horn, there's no Trayvon Merrick, there's a starting linebacker out, another one coming back in after a couple of weeks out. How did this defense force 3 takeaways? How did this defense pick off Matt Stafford twice when he'd been picked twice all year?
I mean, I think the best they kind of hit on it was just the announcers did was just kind of the bend but don't break mentality. You know, like we talked about, you know, the Staffords, the Devontae Adams, the Pukas, and, you know, the many other weapons. I mean, it's like, you know, they're going to be able to have drives and to drive the ball. And, you know, it's kind of like when you're guarding LeBron and you know he's going to get 26, 6, and 6. But it's like you have to create stops when it matters. And that's what they did. They got into the Rams got into the red zone, and the Panthers defense were able to have two turnovers, 2 big turnovers to stop the game and to create turnovers and to create more momentum for their offense. You know, that's the reason. That's how they got after the quarterback. They did the best they could to cover Devontae Adams. You know, that's never an easy thing. Puka Nacua, that's never an easy thing. But they were able to get stops when it mattered the most, whether it was on third down, whether it was in the red zone, creating stops, creating turnovers. They did what they needed to do when it needed to be done, and that's how they were able to pick up those 3 takeaways.
Nick Scott with a pick, Mike Jackson with the pick 6, and then for my money, the best quote of the day. Here's Mike Jack in the locker room after the game.
Oh, I had to keep my composure because y'all was just acting like the man. Don't get me wrong, he's a Hall of Famer. Like, when he's having his Hall of Fame speech, I'm going to be thinking about this pick. So he's great, but at the end of the day, like, it's about who's better that day.
Having talked to Mike Jack in the locker room before, seeing him take advantage of that opportunity with JC out was awesome. And listen, I mean, we were in the locker room all week, like, Matt Stafford this, Matt Stafford that. Like, as a competitor, when we're in there asking you about somebody over and over and over again during the week, how motivating can that be?
I mean, knowing those guys and knowing how competitive they are, I mean, I'm sure it was bulletin board talk all week.
Yep.
They're saying this about Stafford, they're saying this about Devontae Adams, or they're saying this about the Rams. I mean, it just the chip on your shoulder just grows and grows and grows as the week goes on. So I'm sure he wanted to punt the ball out of the stadium when he picked that off and had a pick 6 and do all types of whatever to get 15-yard penalty. I'm sure that was probably the calmest he could possibly be because, yeah, after everybody was saying that they were going to lose and everyone was saying, you know, that this game was kind of, you know, just an easy W for the Rams, you know, to be able to come out there and compete and to get a pick 6 and to really kind of put your stamp on the game. I'm glad he didn't go crazy, but I'm sure in the locker room he had some other things to say.
All right, Dominique Daphne, NFL tight end, football analyst. We're going to come back for one more segment, and it's nice to talk about this now that they're coming off a win, but let's take a look at what's ahead for the Carolina Panthers and what can be this season coming up. Back here with NFL tight end and football analyst Dominique Daphne, who spent training camp with the Carolina Panthers. I failed to mention, Dominique, I had to ask you this over the phone because it was on Wikipedia that you were born in Charlotte. So I knew you grew up in Iowa. I didn't know if somebody just like wrote that in there, but you actually were. So you were in Charlotte till when?
Till I was about 2-3 years old. But no, I was born in Presbyterian Hospital, right down the street from the bank.
My daughter was just born there.
Yeah.
So what was it like to be back with the Panthers? You know, you probably don't remember much about what it looked like here. Had you played here with the Packers or anybody? I can't remember if that crossed over.
No, we played the Panthers at home back in 2020. But, I mean, it kind of felt like being back home. And with where I grew up, or excuse me, where I was born that close, you know, I grew up a Panthers fan actually with, you know, Delhomme and Steve Smith.
Awesome.
And all those guys like that. That was my team. You know, the heartbreak that I felt going because I went to JUCO. We had to ride that snowy 3-hour drive back after they lost in the Super Bowl to the Broncos. I was heartbroken. So it was like being able to be in that building and rep the Panthers, it meant a lot. And to just be able to be back where I was born and raised for a little bit, it meant a lot to me.
Really cool. All right, so before the Panthers played this game, they're coming off the disappointing and discouraging loss to San Francisco, and they look at the stretch ahead, and it's the LA Rams, the Saints, who beat them, the Bucs twice, and the Seattle Seahawks. How much easier does that stretch look to this group of guys now that they just picked off the Rams? I mean, they're all the same teams, basically the same personnel. Baker's coming back, and the Bucs are getting healthy. How much confidence does that give them coming off the bye this week and then going through that final 4-game stretch?
I think winning, of course, gives them a lot of confidence. And doing so against a really good opponent in the NFC, and then having everything that you talk about in the offseason right in front of you, that gives you a lot of confidence. They go into the bye week coming off a big win, playing an opponent twice that they know a lot about, and being able to play other NFC teams, obviously, that Dave knows a lot about in the Seahawks. I think they have the utmost confidence in the world and believe that they can play and they can beat anybody. So having that big win and being able to rest your guys for a week and get some guys back from injury, from suspension, and getting some guys back in the swing of things, like you said, with some linebackers coming back, I think they're peaking at the perfect time.
It could and very well probably will come down to Panthers Bucs. Face each other 2 out of the last 3 weeks of the season. Wild card maybe out of play, maybe have to go through the division to get there. I think the Bucs have something like, and maybe from ESPN, like an 80% chance to make the playoffs, and the Panthers like 20%. They don't feel 60 percentage points. That's the gap between these two teams right now. What do you think of that matchup as we're a few weeks out of it?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the game of the week both times because of how much is riding on it. And for both teams, we're dealing with a little bit of injuries, having some guys come back. They both dropped some games that they weren't supposed to, with the Panthers losing to the Saints and Tampa Bay dropping a couple games. So I honestly think they're both in the same position. I hear 80-20, and I think a lot of that has to do with the logo and whose team is whose. But when you look at the way both teams have played this season and what they have in front of them, I think they're in the same position. And I think, like you said, it's going to be between those two of who wins the NFC South.
Because you have the unique perspective, Dominique, of having been with this team through the summer, I don't want you to spill the tea or anything, but what was this a team that was like, yeah, we're ready to go to the playoffs? Because publicly to us, of course, the general manager is going to be careful about that. Dave's going to be careful about that. But you mentioned the competitiveness of some of these guys and the talent of some of these guys. Is this a team that believed no, this is the year that we could do this?
Yeah. And I was telling people myself, people would always ask me, you guys got a chance? I'm like, I'm telling you, the people that we have in this locker room, the coaches that we have in this locker room, it's the year where we have an opportunity to really get back in the playoffs. And they fully believe it, and they should. They have guys in that locker room who can play. They have coaches who are some of the best in their positions at what they do. All of it, it's all about putting together a clean 3 phases, 4-quarter game of football and doing it at the right time. And they were able to do so on Sunday, and that's only going to push their mentality and push their confidence forward to think, if we can do this against the Rams, I guarantee you we can do this against anybody else in this league.
Dominique, what was your welcome to the NFL moment? You got one queued up on the tip of your tongue? Or there are a few? I always love hearing about these.
Oh yeah. When we played, it wasn't like I got smacked, thankfully. I thought
usually that it's right, I got ear-holed or something like that, but
nah. We were playing the Bears. I was with the Packers. We were playing the Bears in 2020. January 3rd, 2020. 2021. I always remember it was the first touchdown I ever caught. Mm-hmm. But I was in there blocking Khalil Mack, and it was just a regular duo, just 12 duo or something. And I was blocking him one-on-one, and he laughs. He goes, "Was that it?" I'm like, "Well, shoot, did you make the tackle?" He's like, "That's all they put you in for?" I'm like, "Brother, if you didn't make the tackle, then I did my job." But that was him laughing at me blocking him. I was just like, "Oh, that was rude. Like, what was that for? And that was kind of the, oh, yeah, some of these boys out here are built different, and Khalil Mack is for sure one of those guys.
All right, I'm looking it up right now. So was the touchdown was against the Bears? Was it at Soldier Field or Lambeau?
It was at Soldier Field, yeah.
Okay, so no opportunity for a Lambeau leap. Where's the ball right now?
It's upstairs.
Nice.
It's upstairs in my man cave. It's sitting. I know where it is. It's sitting right upstairs.
Awesome. Well, I hope you got a few more. Dominique Daphne, NFL tight end, Carolina Panther, as recently as this summer, football analyst. Where can we find you on social media? Follow your stuff, because you're training during the day to try to get back on a roster. You're doing the media stuff the rest of the day. So where can we find you?
Yeah, I got Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all Dominique Daphne. Twitter's DDaphne24. Everything else is Dominique Daphne. So should be pretty easy.
All right, hope to do this again soon, but first and foremost, hope to hear your name on a broadcast soon, man. Good luck trying to get back these last couple weeks. Stay on the grind. Thank you, Dominique.
Appreciate it.
All right, that's it for Panthers.